Okay, so let's go into Moodle, and again we're on this week, which is hard to believe, isn't it? January 27th through February 2nd. That's amazing. So Monday we completed the XHTML Strict 1.0 Project 1 assignment. You uploaded it to UMBox, and I did grade those. I have feedback left for you in the assignment, so you'll have to click on that assignment and go back. So whether you got full points or, point deduction, whatever it is, there's explanation of what I found that was correct and not correct. And please do go back. So for example, if your email link wasn't working one page to the next, go back and, recopy and paste the code that works and then move it to that other page. So please do make the corrections that I suggest on your feedback. And then today we'll start, so it's the same project, but we're building on it. So we're adding more pages and kind of changing the focus a little bit, but it's going to be ultimately about you. So it's kind of like your student story. And this is different. So this really focuses on you, your website. I would imagine you might use some of the elements that we create here with this larger student story. And then you can change the names, the colors, the labels, content, all that good stuff. But I think you'll like some of the pieces and parts of the format, the layout that we create. So that's kind of the purpose, is that we just keep learning and developing and growing our skill as we go. So we'll begin our HTML5 project, and again, it's just a different document type, web doc type, and we'll change the DocType on the XHTML Strict 1.0 to be the new HTML5. And we'll do some other stuff. So we're going to adjust for responsive design, add to our cascading style sheet. So we've got an internal style right now. We're going to create an external style sheet, and then that will control much of the layout and design of our 5 web pages. And so again, we're going to expand from our 2-page project to a 5-page larger project. And it is a multi-week assignment. So just to let you know, this is something that we're going to be, it'll take a little bit of time to work on. And if you look at the, oh, and I should probably go through those two quickly, but there's a responsive design HTML5 doc number 2. So you can open that one. And then as far as just the couple little, helpful documents, 101 ways to promote your website. So we'll kind of run through these really quickly. So you want to identify your objective, for whatever website or web content you're creating. Is it to advertise a product? That should be product, by the way, or service online, sell a product or a service. Maybe it's only customer support. Could be straight corporate information, not anything that's designed for anybody else but within your company. Create or establish maybe just awareness or brand identity. 85% of people searching use search engines. This is old information from 2006. It's probably 100% now. And Google is Safari, Firefox. Those are some of the most popular. Oftentimes you'll register your site to improve search engine optimization, but as we go, there's things that you can do within your website that increase your search engine optimization. So when people type in a search phrase, hopefully yours moves closer to the top, if not the top. And we'll learn about rankings, so title tags. Remember the title tag that's in our head content? So that's one of the really important search engine criteria. Keywords, and we haven't typed those in yet, but that's definitions, things related to your website. Could be phrases, could be words, could be names of products, the service, maybe people, maybe the area, Missoula or Montana, Pacific Northwest. And there's about 1,000 characters that you get. The description, less characters, that's more maybe the company mission, vision, values. It's what you do and what you do well. You try to communicate that. Alt tags are really helpful. We've been using alt tags on our images. And hypertext links, you want them to be descriptive. So the click here, you don't want anything to ever say click here because that's not descriptive and doesn't help with search engine optimization, nor does it really tell the user, why should I, what is it? What is going to be here that I click on? Domain and file names. So it's helpful if you name them, again, more specific to what the file is and also how it relates to your website. Again, search engine optimization, the more specific, the better. Body text, you want to place keywords at the beginning. So the first about 200 characters are most important. And that's also most important because it's going to tell your viewer in very few words, this is what you're going to find here. And that helps them probably continue, hopefully, is what you want them to do. And then headers, remember those H1s through H6s. Those are really important for search engine optimization. Link popularity, whether it's the quality of links, links to other sites. Some people trade web links, but also links internal with your company. You may have a website that has a Facebook page, that has Instagram, Twitter, maybe Pinterest, and you want to link to all those too. So that helps. And then your HTML content is important. Brainstorming, we're going to be doing this kind of as a larger exercise as far as, you know, what do you want to create for your website? What is your topic? Who's your customer? What content do I need to include? And then marketing considerations, you want to improve people's return to your website in a lot of ways. Some people do it with daily advice, contests, email a friend and you get a free, I don't know, or, you know, recommend somebody. Could be that there's a calculator, a financial calculator. There's all sorts of things that encourage people to come back, encourage loyalty. And again, you want to consider your target market group, and we'll have a larger project on that. There's some download speed checkers. Dreamweaver actually has a little internal one there. And some helpful hints in designing. I think we'll probably go through some of these. This will be, you know, out or available for you at all times, but you might want to refer back to this. We did the validation website. Yeah, we'll come back and visit this later as we, you know, build our web project. So anyway, and then elements of web design. So that's just another quick one we'll open there. So you want to look overall. Graphic design is the art of arranging pictures and type on your communication. You're creating an effective communication. The primary principles of design are unity, and again, you'll probably hear different ones depending upon, so in digital print, it's contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And here, unity, so everything appears unified, repeated design elements, variety, there's some sort of interest that's created. Hierarchy, so the viewer knows where to go, what they're going to get there, and maybe even what they should do first. And then proportion, that's just a size relationship, again, can be related in pictures, but also hierarchy of text. Heading 1's more important, organizing information, and then within heading 1's you might have a heading 3, and then maybe heading 6 if it's really little, that's tiny. Golden rules, or the golden section, and green aesthetic, you might hear all sorts of terms, but it's basically 1 to 1.618, so it's about 1 to 1 2/3. And that's aesthetically pleasing elements. If you look at the human body, if you look at artwork, if you look at architecture, that's the relation of elements to one another. Pleasing design, 1 to 1 2/3 approximately. So you might see that in art courses. Elements of design, again, there's some other, you might have already run into these in other courses, but shape and space, line, size, color, some of these we have used already. And with color, there's all sorts of values and tints and shades, etc. Monochrome, so that's using the same color tones versus maybe complementary colors that are opposite one another. Again, we'll call up some other documents with color later. Texture, so sometimes you can add texture. You want to make sure it doesn't conflict with your content text in any way. But texture can make things interesting just as backgrounds. And then typography can be really important, so it needs to have the character of the organization that you're creating the website for, be easy to read. It needs to communicate. So I guess that's kind of the basics with typography. Script can be fun, but you don't want to read a whole bunch of script in paragraph format because it's really difficult to read. So think about the elements of design and familiar analogies. So the ingredients of a recipe, the materials to build a house, you've got the foundation, actually all the footings and plumbing and water and all that good stuff below that, foundation, subfloor, all that good stuff above that. And humans do like to perceive order. When they perceive disorder, they're motivated to organize it. So things like misalignment in if you have a hierarchy and you're supposed to have consistent alignment, the human eye can go, something's off with that. Let's see. So again, a lot of this you can read on your own. Close that one. And the last one, letting go of the words. This is probably more for when you actually begin your content. We'll be organizing things in a pyramid, so it's a reverse pyramid format. So you're going to tell your reader first what you want them to know, and then you consistently build supporting detail below that. So it's kind of how journalists write. If you look at a newspaper article, the very first paragraph, and oftentimes the headline, really kind of tells you most of what it is. The first paragraph, you can get the bulk of what happened or what the news story is, and then there's supporting detail that supports the news or the information as you go further down. And again, we'll talk about more of this later. We may come back and pull these documents up for target audience and such as we go. So these will be available. We'll create kind of a little persona. Organizations, especially if they're large, probably spend a lot of money on creating who their target market is, and they create maybe different personas. They make them up. They name them. They create what their appearance might be, what they like to do, who they talk to, how they look for things online, what publications they read. It's really a lot of detail, what they like to eat, where they like to eat. So it goes into a lot more than what you might think. Anyway, so again, this will be available to you, but it does have some information that's valuable, I think, especially as you start creating your web content. So we'll go back to that later. So the document that I'd like you to open today, and it's, again, Responsive Web Design HTML5 Doc 2. And if you open that, it is this document. Oh, you need to see the screen, don't you?
I think we've been looking at it.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the screen's, okay. Yeah, they're all online there. So the screen will be coming on here in just a minute. So with the responsive design, and our document was a little bit responsive in that the text really kind of responded, the window a little bit with our 75%. So we were kind of starting that whole, okay, what happens when it's really large, tablet size, phone size, how do I make this look a little bit better? So we'll continue on with that. That should be coming up here in a minute. So we're going to change our old doc, old style. Still works, XHTML strict 1.0. It's a valid document type, but we're going to change that to the newer HTML5 and remove the root element. We're going to update our character set. So that old Western European 8859-1 is older. You probably see more UTF-8. You might see UTF-16, but for the most part, probably UTF-8 as our character set. We're going to add metadata for the viewport to 100%. Or a 1.0, and that's where the width equals the width of the device. We're going to add max width to internals as an internal style for images. We've done that already. So some of these we've done, and we'll talk about as we go and make sure that that was added to your within your design. Organize content to display a container style using internal style. We've done that already, and we can again play with different sizes there. We'll mimic the appearance of a header, the body content, and the footer. We've really done everything, but I would say the footer. So we added kind of everything is shoved to the left, so it doesn't look like it's a block that goes edge to edge. But we do have sort of a header appearance, and then the body content, I would say, is that white space, the block that we created for grid container. And then footer would probably mimic something like the header, where it's a larger block at the bottom. It's kind of like an opening and a closing, maybe think of it that way. We'll add internal styles or use internal styles to color our background. We did a little bit of that already. We'll create a cascading style sheet that's external, so we're going to have to link it, and we'll modify format in that as well. We'll adjust font to be scalable, so something can be really quite large, and then as we scale our device, use different devices, it can scale down. Can work okay. We'll add a navigation bar and style the appearance. The only navigation we have right now is way at the bottom of the page. It's a link to go to my hobbies. Probably nobody's going to find it. If they looked at it, they may not even know that exists. We're going to modify that navigation bar so that to spatially separate those elements out. We'll add some color to it. When you mouse over, it'd be nice if you knew kind of where you were at mousing over. And in fact, if you click on something, it would be nice to know what page visually on the nav bar that you click. We're also going to add drop downs. And with drop downs, they should be hidden until you mouse over them so that they don't show up. But when you mouse over them, they should drop and you should be able to select. The other thing we'll do is design for a responsive format. So in a large screen, we can have a horizontal navigation bar with a vertical drop down for anything that's like a child page. But when we get to a skinny screen, if it's very long, it's going to block down and be confusing. So, wrap around. So we'd want to change our format to be a block vertical. We'll modify our images to add responsive design. Kind of like I talked about on Monday, you may want to have images that relate to the screen size. So something that's very large for desktop, smaller for tablet, even smaller maybe for phone. We're also going to create columns and or tables so that large blocks of text maybe can fit in a column format when they're really big, and then squish down and block on top of one another when they're in a smaller screen. We'll organize our text with headings. We've done a little bit of that already, and of course there's always the proofreading for page and element consistency. So responsive design is techniques to present web content in the most relevant format for the viewport, and that's the device, so the device accessing it. And techniques include flexible grid layout, flexible image media, and media queries. We're going to be using media queries in our examples for this project. Responsive design is needed to address current high demand for mobile, tablet, desktop web browsing. The first Apple 2007 iPhone web pages were fixed width and approximately 960 pixels wide, and that's really, there was design there for laptops or desktops at 960. There's still, I think our student web server will be able to see an example of what happens in everything now is really designed, not everything, but much of the web for phones. Have you ever had something on your phone and you have to, the screen is so wide, you have to just scroll, and it's really difficult to navigate. Everything gets really small. So that's an example of, you know, things designed for a long time ago before the iPhone, and that really revolutionized design. So we're going to use our existing 2-page project, and again, please refer to my feedback and correct, you know, the few things. I think almost everybody's was really good, but there was a few things I think that I commented back on, and I can help if you have questions on that. But we're going to get result in a 5-page little website, and it's your student story, so it represents you. We'll have a brief introduction on, you know, your home page, personal background, maybe an attention grabber, your educational interests, and maybe a little bit about, so other links, your recreational activities. Maybe you've got some volunteer or academic volunteer activities that you like to do. I'd like you to put your resume in brief format, so nothing that's, you don't have to, and this is not going live, by the way. This is only going to be on Box for me. So this is nothing the world is going to see. And then your contact information. And again, mostly your email, you know, student email. So we'll create a folder, new folder again, and we'll copy and paste the index and the hobbies. So anything that we're going to use for this project, we'll go ahead and copy and paste in there. So let's go to our Windows Explorer here, and I want to, in documents, I want to create, you know, so sort of like this one, html5, Gallipo, spring 2020. And this is really document 2, but it's part, I guess it's the student story. So we can probably just create new and then folder. So html5 underscore and then your last name and underscore, I'm going to do spring 2020. And I might just do student story, just so that we clarify if there's any other elements or additions that we decide to make as we go within the class. So html5 underscore your last name underscore the semester, spring 2020 underscore student story. And I did all lowercase again. Okay, so then from your XHTML, so we're going to borrow things that we're going to use, and we're going to use index, and if I hold down my control key, remember control in a Windows environment lets you select things that are non-consecutive. Shift key is a whole block. And we'll probably want that little Mozilla College, the small Mozilla College ping file, and then take your image, and I may need to come back and I'll go ahead and take that one. Some of the other ones I may take the other ones too. So we'll borrow almost everything. If you've got any Word files, or maybe you've got two image sizes of yourself, you don't need to take those. So anything that you're currently using on your web project, I guess, if that makes sense. So anything that doesn't relate to what you got graded on, I wouldn't borrow those. So then we can just Control C, and then we'll go back and go into your brand new HTML5 there, and then Control V and paste them. So basically everything is there that you need for your graded project. Borrowed everything. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and start. So the very first thing we do here, and I'll make my window smaller so you can see, is change our DocType to HTML5. So we're going to want to open up our index file in Notepad, So go ahead and right click on index when it's highlighted, and we'll open it in Notepad. And then make it a little bit skinnier here so we can see it. So all that garbage, I shouldn't say garbage, it's the old DocType, but the only thing we need is the brackets, exclamation, uppercase DocType space HTML. So this part right there is all I need so far. And then the root element, the only thing I need there is HTML, so I can get rid of everything there. And I'll continue going down. We begin our head content, that's exactly the same. Our title, and actually this whole thing, so I've got them reversed, it doesn't again. Within the head content, we're good to go, it doesn't really matter. This whole thing, we're going to just change to meta character set or char set equals UTF-8. So I can get rid of almost everything there. Need a space, meta character set equals, and then I need my quote, and then in lowercase UTF-8. And then I don't need self-closing anymore. Remember that was that XHTML strict 1.0 DocType requirement. So meta character set equals within our quotes lowercase UTF-8. And again, make sure that you have the opening and closing quotes. Okay, does not have to be self-closing. The title was okay, I think. Whatever you want to put there, I think that's fine. We may edit that later as we go. And then the style we have there. So the other thing that we're going to add, and I might need to make this smaller here. Yeah, now I can see the whole thing. So the viewport, and you can see the explanation there. So the viewport controls the page dimensions and scaling. So we're going to make the content render at the width of the device, so at the 100% of its viewport. So it will scale to the device, if that device being desktop, tablet, mobile. So we'll add that in there. And again, you can copy and paste if you'd like to, or type it in. But it is here, we can go ahead and Control-C. And it needs to be in the head content. I'll go ahead and put it after my title. So the name, the meta name we have, it's viewport, and the content means the width of the viewport equals the device width. The scale of 1.0 is 100%, if that makes sense. So the pages, dimensions, and scaling will render at the width of the device or 100% the width of the device. All right. And I think, so we do have to add the link to our cascading style sheet, and we'll start creating our cascading style sheet here in just a minute. So let's see here. Let's go, we want to be before the internal style, so make sure that you're not, inside that whole thing. So maybe if you want to click right after the meta name, and I know I've got larger text, it's wrapping around. Is that confusing or does that work okay? Oh, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and enter just to make space there between my meta name viewport and my style. And this is existing. So I think most of you have the style in there from the prior assignment. And then we're going to add, so we're going to create this file. I know we haven't created it yet, but it's a link to a file that's going to be called responsive_menu_styles.cascading_style-sheets or CSS. It's a style type, and the type is text cascading style sheets. So again, we can copy and paste that. you would be able to find all this stuff online versus me creating it. You can go to other folks' websites in some cases. The style sheet is going to be different, of course, but if things aren't working right, you can always research World Wide Web Consortium, use the validator, tutorials, all sorts of things that tell you this. So we'll create, this is always going to be different depending upon who named it, but it's a link, it's a hyperlink reference to, and this is going to have to be within our root. So if that makes sense, you know how we put our files, that we didn't create a folder, in other words. Everything is accessible from, in our last project, the XHTML project 1. So this has to be at that root because we've not told it. Go to styles / responsive, if that makes sense. And everything we have really with this, we haven't created a folder to organize things within our main root folder. So just pointing that out, that sometimes you may see things when you're when you right mouse click, go to view page source, you might see that there's different organization with different web design and web elements. All right. The other thing that we're going to do, and we already did this one here, so we added our style type text / CSS. That was the result of, remember, we validated our website. That was kind of the last thing that came up as an error. We did add a little bit of, so remember on our images, we added width, max width equals 100%, and then height auto, meaning, you know, make the maximum width of the image 100% and then adjust that, the height automatically depending upon the width. But we've not attached that to every image. So we went image by image. So what we're going to do now, this is a rewrite of the image tag. So we're going to, every single image that we're going to have will be now max width of 100% because of this being a style within our header content. So again, we can go ahead, we did the same thing with body. Remember, we rewrote the body tag to have this background color. So go ahead and click before the end of the style. So remember your / style ending tag. And you want to make sure, so the full body tag rewrite, body style, then you need to grab the curly bracket to curly bracket has to be, so this needs to be intact, in other words, with one another. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add image, img, space, and then the left curly bracket, enter key, and then I'm going to go ahead and just tab key in so that it's consistent with my other internal style organization elements or organization of the display. And my max height and width colon is 100%, and then I have to end with my semicolon, enter key, and then my right curly bracket. So the whole image, again, we're rewriting that image tag, so every single image we have is going to be defined at max width 100%. And then we can just double check the grid container. I think this we had done already. And again, if you feel like you want to do 80%, go ahead and do 80%. If you want to try something different, you sure can. So the grid container, remember, was that kind of inset part. We colored the background white. Again, you can color it something different. Remember that it did have this solid, thin black border around it. We had to offset, so we padded the left and the right side. We had to offset that by about 1% to make it look okay from the edges. Otherwise, there was no eye rest. And then to center it within our window, remember the left and the right margin was set to auto. So I think you had already done that. Is that good to go? Okay. And then the body, we had already colored the body background a light blue color. So again, we're good with that. We've ended our style. That's good. We've ended our head. That's good. And we begin the body. So is that consistent too with where you're at? All right. So let's do a file save. You know what? Yeah, I did call it up from there. I'm good to go. Okay. I was thinking, uh-oh, I opened it from the other one and I just overwrote my other one. But we opened it from within our HTML5, right? Okay, we're good to go. So our old project is still our old project. You have to get back to it. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, and when we open our little website here, so, you know, in a smaller window, if this was the company name, again, this is kind of about you, so it's you kind of are the company or the organization here. Whatever your organization or ideas are. And I think that's probably okay on font size, but again, when I make it a little bit larger, and especially really large, it all stays there and it doesn't really expand, and it could maybe stretch a little bit with the window and look a little bit better. So let's go back again. We'll go, yeah, if I can find my, oh, it's that one. Okay, there we go. So we're going to add a style to increase the font size to the viewport width. So the VW there, remember we've had a little bit already in discussion with viewport width and the 100% of the device, all that good stuff. So this will be, and you can try a 5, you can try 7, we'll do a 7.5, you can try a 10 just to see what it looks like. So before we've got your H1, and we need to be inside the H1 tag. Okay, so H1 and then space, that's your heading 1. And then the style equals, so this is an internal inline style. So style equals, and then my quote starts, font, hyphen size, my colon, and then I'll just do a 7.5 at this point, VW, viewport width, and then I end my quote. And the bracket was in place, your name is exactly the same, and we still have to end heading 1. So really the only thing we added was the space, and style equals, start your quote, font hyphen size, colon, 7.5 VW, which is viewport width, and then I'm going to end my quote. So let's do a file save. Go back to your document, refresh. Oh, this is my old one. That's why. So we need to do our HTML. I called up my old index. So that might be a little bit big. That's really big. It looks okay when it's small, but pretty big. So it takes up a lot of space vertically. So we may want to go and maybe just make that a 5. Let's see what it does with 5. So it still is big, but it doesn't get gigantic. And then I think it shrinks down okay for font size. So 5 might be a little bit more appropriate. And again, you can adjust yours as you like. Okay, so far so good? All right. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, all right. So the next part, and I'll go back here, we don't have a navigation bar. We kind of sort of do, but it's at the bottom of our page and it just goes to hobbies. And that's not a bad thing to leave links, you know, just text links, and that's really all it is. It's a text links that goes to hobbies. And you still see that fairly common. That used to be the norm, that there was always the, you know, some sort of navigation. It used to be vertical at the left. I don't know if you remember those days. That was kind of the design a long time ago. Now it seems to be vertical at the top or horizontal at the top. I think it uses less space, and that's where people's eye, I think, focuses now. They look for the menu there rather than vertical at the left, at top left. So we're going to create some navigation. We'll eventually style this whole thing, and it's going to look goofy. So while we're creating it, know that it's going to look goofy until we get our external cascading style sheet created, and then we're going to define how it's going to look. And we're going to add, so we'll create this little navigation bar. The only pages that we have created right now, so it'll work if I click home. It'll work if I click to my hobbies, but we don't have a page called resume yet. We don't have a page called activities yet, nor do we have a page called contact. So we're going to have to add some pages in order to get them to go there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and let's see. Let's go here. So we've got our name. I think I would want it to be, I guess if we're looking at our page here, I think I'd want navigation maybe after mine. This might be a little bit too large a space there. We can look at that later, but I think I'd want the course, my email, maybe to be at the top, and then maybe my navigation could float to the right. I guess if I'm visualizing this in my own head, I might want it to be underneath my email before that horizontal rule, the one that goes edge to edge, and maybe block it over at the right if it's in large screen. Okay, so that's kind of what I have my idea here. So that means that we're going to look for, we want to look for our email, we want to look for that horizontal rule, and we want to be above the grid container. So we're going to make space after that first horizontal rule and before the grid container. Okay. Then, bring that back up. Then we're just going to copy this. And I might have you actually key this. I think it's better sometimes, especially this, because we're going to be modifying. I think sometimes it's easier to key it and understand what's going on. We'll stop and see what it looks like, all that good stuff, before we do any of the cascading style sheet, so the design of it itself. And you may want to start by, so I'm going to start with my unordered list. And we may actually want to tab key in so that there's some organization here, because you're going to have to, again, come back, and sometimes it's helpful to have a little bit of organization to visually see the hierarchy of how this nav bar goes. So I'm starting my unordered list, and I have to have a list item to begin with. Remember, list items were the bullets. Remember those? So we're going to start our list item, and the first one, so I have an anchor that's a hyperlink reference to a file called index, and we did something exactly like this, but we went to my hobbies. So we really kind of did this whole deal. So my list item, my anchor space, remember there's a space between them. href is my hyperlink reference. It equals, and then I want to type index.html, that's the full file name. Close my quote, close my, remember you've got to have the brackets encased within my beginning anchor that's linking to my index file. So remember, you've got your starting left and right brackets. And then the name, I can type home, I can type Cheryl Gallipo's home, I can type ABC Company. Home, whatever you name your home is what's going to be here. We'll use the word home, but some web developers don't like to use necessarily home. They might want to use other language, but we'll call ours home. And then I need to end my anchor. And then I need to end my list item. And again, this is properly nested. So I'm beginning my list item. I'm closing my list item on the outsides. Inside is my anchor to a file called index. The viewer's going to see the word home. I end my anchor. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, then we can enter key again and tab key. I think I pushed, did I push caps lock? I don't remember. I think I'm okay now. Okay, so the second one, we're going to start our list item. And then my left bracket, start my anchor. My anchor is a hyperlink reference that goes to, whoops, goes to, gee whiz. my hobbies, which you have, so you've done exactly this, my underscore hobbies.html, and my quote, and my little right bracket. And we're going to call this one recreational hobbies. So there's going to be a difference in your whole story. So you'll have kind of your home page, that's your background and such. And then remember, hobbies was the fun things you like to do. So these are going to be your recreational hobbies. We'll have a little resume page, so that's separate. That's maybe something that you might give to an employer. It may be your web development skills. It may be some other skills that you have. And then your volunteer activities. And I realize you're busy students and you probably don't have a lot of time to volunteer right now, but some of you probably have done volunteer activities in the past. If you have babysat for your sister or brother, I think that's volunteering. You may have been on a high school, maybe speech and debate. That's a volunteer team. You may play on a recreational league that helps and supports young students without parents or a mom or a dad. Think about, so you probably do volunteer activities that you may not realize you do. So think about that as we're going along. But anyway, so these are our recreational hobbies. And then I need to end my anchor and end my list item. And I'm going to make this go out a little bit here. So I'm going to let you copy and paste. Now that you've keyed the 2 pages that you have, I am going to let you copy and paste. So now let's come over here and exactly the same thing. And we may need to tab them in a little bit. But we have list item with our anchor hyperlink reference to resume, the word volunteer activities, contact. And if you would like to change some of the language a little bit, you sure can, but this is kind of the gist of what, I'll just paste them right now, and then we'll tab them in evenly. So this is the whole section right there. Okay. Extra space there. So make sure you have spaces between your anchor and your hyperlink reference. The language that you use should be sort of consistent, with this. What I do for fun, maybe a resume or professional qualifications. I don't know, you can use different words if you want. Whatever you do, volunteerism, if you'd rather call it that. And then contact could be contact me or just simply contact. So let's save this, file save, and then come back here, and I will stop. It's almost 9:50, so we'll get to the point where we'll stop. Now, why do I have an extra one? You guys have an extra bullet? Isn't that weird?
You forgot to fully close the recreational hobbies on the last one. Where was that? In the last list item.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
There we go. Good proofreading. See how that works? It's always one little character. So you should see, just like the bullet, normal, remember we did bulleted, but that wouldn't be a normal menu to have bullets. And also, I want my horizontal rule to be below it. So I went the wrong place. So I'm going to Control X, my horizontal rule, Control V. So I want it to be above my horizontal rule. And I'll go ahead and get that, file save. And that will look better after a while there, but does that make sense? I had us enter in the wrong area. So I want the horizontal rule to go edge to edge, then the grid container to start, and I think it looks better above the rule. then below the rule. Okay, so we'll create our cascading style sheet that removes the bullet and removes the text decoration. The underline is that's the default for the link. The link color itself is a default, remember, the kind of purple once you've been there and then the blue when you haven't been there. So we'll do that on Friday. Okay, so I'll stop here today.